Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, we went to visit McStabby's and survived to tell the tale. Give you all the details, but before we get to any of that, got a story you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
I got a treasure trove of documents and a public disclosure request about why Starbucks left Seattle, why Starbucks is moving to Nashville, and how much they dislike Democrat policies. Now, before you go down that rabbit hole of, well, Starbucks, they're so woke, everything they said in these documents is everything we've all been experiencing. So as we say all the time, a Democrat is just a conservative who hasn't been mugged yet. And that's basically what's in these documents. But before I tell you what's in these specific documents, because they're new ones, they're not the ones we discussed yesterday, there were some social media posts yesterday from Turd Ferguson. Turd Ferguson starts talking about how wonderful Washington State is and how high we're ranked according to CNBC. The Seattle Times jumps right on this, as do all the Democrats talking about, see, people like Ari Hoffman are completely full of crap. Our state's wonderful. Our state's awesome. Businesses love our states. From the Seattle Times, CNBC, ranked Washington as the 11th best state in the nation for business, despite some business giants recently decrying its lack of business friendliness. So forget the Seattle Times because it's just parroting the BS from CNBC. I looked at the methodology. How do you arrive at that when you have a 37% office vacancy rate? How do you arrive at that when businesses are fleeing the state? How do you arrive at that when businesses aren't opening in the state? How do you arrive at that where for the first time in our state's history, you have a net negative migration out of the state? Interesting that CNBC actually put their methodology on here. Would you like to know their very, 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 very scientific methodology that they used for the survey? It almost reminds me of the methodology used to say, stay home, stop the spread, wear a mask, stop the spread, 6 feet of social distancing, completely made up. Quote, our methodology assigns a weight to each category based on how frequently the states cite it as a selling point. The idea is to measure the states based on the criteria they use to pitch themselves to businesses. So what you're saying is Turd Ferguson going out there and going, we're great for business. And because he has to do it all the time, because businesses are fleeing, because Turd Ferguson posts that in every social media post, we're good for business. Now, CNBC got shredded because what were the worst places for business? Amazingly, almost every single one of them. Oh, wait, every single one of them is a red state. Tennessee, Texas, Indiana, Louisiana, Georgia, Utah, Missouri, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Arkansas are all the places that are conservative. Yeah, that's why. It's because they're bad for business, which is why all those places from Texas, from California, are moving to Texas, right? That's why all these businesses like Starbucks are leaving Washington for Nashville, Tennessee. So tell me again, oh, wait, you guys just did this to try and say red states are bad for business, blue states good for business. No methodology aside from how they sell themselves. And here's the thing. Does Florida have to sell itself? They got a great spokesperson in Ron DeSantis, but he doesn't have to sell himself. He spends his time talking about the things that they fixed in the state and how they're trying to repeal an income tax. What does Greg Abbott talk about in Texas? How they are making sure that the border is secure, and how they are getting rid of terrorists, and how they are deporting illegal aliens, and how they are getting rid of human smugglers and drug runners. They don't have to spend the time talking about how great Texas is. People know how great Texas is. So you're telling me that because Turd Ferguson posts a video like this, we're ranked highly?
Hey everybody, Bob Ferguson, Governor of Washington State here with some good news. CNBC does an annual ranking of the best or worst states to do business in the United States. Last year, my first year as governor, we ranked 14th. The rankings just came out. We moved up 3 spots to number 11. So we're making progress in our path to make Washington the absolute best state to do business. Next year, we're going to crack that top 10. We're on our way to number 1. Appreciate all the partnership we have to make Washington literally the best place to do business anywhere in the United States.
Woo! Best place to do business. I assume that's why Starbucks is leaving. I assume that's why so many other companies left, because we're the best place to do business, right? So what was in these documents that we got a hold of? Turns out, after Starbucks announced that they were expanding to Nashville and not expanding here in Washington, Turd Ferguson freaked out. Absolutely freaked out because he knew how bad this was going to be. And we got a hold of the documents of him setting up a meeting with Starbucks to try and convince them, quote, why Washington? All right, this is too insane. So they set up a meeting on April 15th, tax day. Isn't that ironic? They set up a meeting on tax day for Turd Ferguson to go to the Starbucks headquarters in Seattle. Ferguson was expected to meet with the CEO and the executive vice president for a 45-minute visit that included a guided coffee tasting, followed by a sit-down discussion. You know what's interesting about the guided coffee tasting? You know, you used to have the Starbucks Reserve in the basement, but it closed because nobody works down there anymore. And because nobody went there anymore, you could have taken them to the Reserve and just done it right there. But instead, you got to do it upstairs in the offices because, unfortunately, you know, the business closed because nobody works down there anymore. During the briefing that they prepared for Ferguson, so we got this when we had the documents about the Sonics return. Remember this? So Ferguson was calling the commissioner of the NBA, and his staff drafts up this document for him. So they drafted up a document for him. They knew Starbucks was likely to raise uncomfortable questions about the direction of Washington. The meeting summary warned that Starbucks would likely bring up the firm's restructuring, aka laying people off and moving to Nashville, Washington's business environment, and the recent acquisition of the Nashville office building. The stated goal for Ferguson was even more revealing. The meeting was described as a, quote, key opportunity to make a case for why Washington, and to gather information to inform your future strategy, navigating the firm's continued corporate and retail presence. Translation: we're going to tell him why these taxes are good for him. And we're going to tell Starbucks about, well, how can we convince you to stay? That's what it was. So, in other words, after years of Democratic tax hikes, crime, homelessness, and deteriorating business climate, Ferguson's office was trying to convince one of Seattle's most iconic companies to stay invested in the state. The briefing came less than a year after Starbucks sent Ferguson a May 16, 2025 letter, which we got a copy of, urging him to veto SB 5814 and House Bill 2081, warning that the taxes would create unintended long-term economic consequences that will disproportionately impact Washington-based businesses. Starbucks specifically warned that taxing staffing, IT, security, and advertising functions based out of its local headquarters would dramatically increase costs, put the company at a competitive disadvantage to companies based in other states. They warned that the new B&O surcharge would make it more difficult for us to make vital investments in Washington. Ferguson ignored the warning. And by the time Ferguson prepared to meet with Starbucks in April of this year, the damage was already done. According to the governor's own briefing documents, Starbucks was navigating, quote, and this is his office. This is Turd Ferguson's office. Quote, significant labor restructuring and Washington state presence matters. The document said the company's 2 recent rounds of corporate and retail layoffs affected over 1,300 Washington workers. It also noted that 31 Washington locations had been permanently closed, including the Seattle Reserve Roastery on Capitol Hill, and that Starbucks had filed a new notice on April 2nd disclosing 5 additional store closures affecting 69 employees. 4 of those 5 stores were unionized. The document also stated that since 2023, Starbucks headquarters employment had dropped more than 25%, from roughly 3,700 workers to 2,800 workers. At the same time, Seattle-Nashville expansion was moving forward. Ferguson's briefing said reports from March 2026 indicated that Starbucks was opening a 250,000 square foot office space in Nashville, estimated to support up to 2,000 workers. So what was this meeting? Pretty please don't leave. I'm going to tell you how awesome these taxes are and why you should pay them. The company said jobs tied to direct and indirect sourcing would be relocated to Tennessee, though exact numbers were not disclosed. So Ferguson's office is acknowledging everything we found out. Starbucks also maintained that Seattle remains our North American and global support headquarters, which nobody believes. And if you've driven by recently, you can see how few people are working in that building. Ferguson's own staff acknowledged the obvious question, quote, the Nashville acquisition and continued Washington layoffs and closures continue to raise public questions about whether the company is gradually shifting its center of gravity. Translation. We think they're moving the entire company out of Washington. We need to convince them to stay. This is bad politically. This is bad for our taxes. This is bad for everything. Oh, please, oh, God, convince them to stay. And you send in Turd Ferguson? Not exactly known as a good salesman. What a beta. Public safety was also expected to be a major issue, and here's my favorite one. Apparently in February, one of these executives was at an event with Ferguson, and he had raised, ready for this, quote, public safety concerns near the Starbucks headquarters as a top concern. Okay, who here has been to the Starbucks corporate headquarters? Anybody know where it is here? I'm raising my hand for those of you who can't see on the video stream. Kevin's raising his hand because he had to stay out there with me for hours and hours. One, there used to be a whole bunch of restaurants in that area for all the workers. Whole bunch of them are gone. Used to be a whole bunch of stores in that area. Whole bunch of them are gone. Used to be a lot of stores in the bottom of that Starbucks because it's got office on top of retail. All those stores are gone. Now, I know one of them was an Office Max, but let's not forget there was also an Amazon grocery store. Now they're talking about putting data centers in there because there's no foot traffic. Also, you know what's across the street? Home Depot. And that Home Depot has so many cops because there is so much theft at that location. They have one of the towers that looks like a guard tower in the parking lot. There's homeless everywhere and illegal aliens waiting outside the Home Depot.
You know what used to be in the Starbucks headquarters building?
Macy's.
A Starbucks.
Oh, there used to be that too. That's right. They closed the Starbucks also.
When we were there doing the show, people were walking from that building down the street to a Starbucks.
Because there wasn't one in the building
Because there wasn't one in the building anymore.
Yes. In fact, I don't think they were carrying Starbucks back. I think they were carrying something else.
It didn't look like Starbucks.
It didn't look like Starbucks to me. It looked like something else they got locally. So even them Starbucks people can't get Starbucks at their Starbucks location anymore. Can't even do that. We thought it was bad here, but no, it's worse over there. So wait, you're telling me that Starbucks was dealing with the same crime that the rest of us deal with here in Washington? And before all of you say, good, they deserve it, do you remember what Howard Schultz said not too long ago? This was 3-4 years ago. He was back as the CEO of Starbucks, and he gave a whole in-house briefing about how his employees were dealing with crime, and they were going to have to start closing stores in high-crime locations, and a lot of them were here in Seattle. A lot of them were in Los Angeles. A lot of them were in blue cities. So, here's my favorite part. Kevin, when we have a crime, we call the Seattle Police Department, right? If you're an unincorporated King County or Burien or one of the places that farms their police out to King County, you call the King County Sheriff. But when you dial 911, it's either Seattle Police or King County Sheriffs that's showing up to help you out, right? It's not the Washington State Patrol. They have other jobs. The briefing acknowledged that the issue, aka the crime, was largely controlled by the city of Seattle and King County, but said, quote, there may be an opportunity through the state patrol to coordinate better on public safety issues in that area. So, to keep Starbucks you were going to offer to send in the Washington State Patrol to patrol Seattle, specifically SoDo, because Seattle and King County do such a terrible job patrolling that area and such a terrible job dealing with crime in that area. Wait a second. I thought policing didn't solve anything. I thought sending in cops didn't solve anything. Ferguson was really, really quiet during that whole defunding movement. Didn't say anything for it. Didn't say anything against it because he was worried about losing an election. The briefing also warned that Starbucks may raise concerns about the overall business environment in Washington, specifically citing the impact of the 2025 tax package and Ferguson's new, wait for it, millionaire's tax, a.k.a. the income tax, because they knew it was going to affect everybody. Quote, for the millionaire's tax, his concerns are more likely to be directed at retaining executive talent in the state. Oh, you mean when you tax jobs, they leave the state? Okay. Now, these are the worst talking points he was given in response. He should fire his entire staff. He should fire them. Ready for this? Ferguson's proposed talking points were to compare his governing agenda to Starbucks's back to Starbucks turnaround strategy. Similar to your work bringing Starbucks back to basics, my focus is getting Washington back to delivering excellent core public services like schools, roads, and bridges, promoting good government. Oh, I'm sorry. Did they say promoting good governance? Are you kidding me with this? And emphasizing what continues to make Washington a unique magnet for attracting elite talent and innovation and excellent quality of life in a welcoming and beautiful place. That's what you came up with. That's what you came up with. We're going to tax your money. We're going to take all that money and we're going to spend it making things better here in Washington State. How does that sound to you? Does that sound good? Not, we'll make some carve-outs. Not, you're right, it's too much taxes. Maybe we'll cut some spending. No, instead it was, well, we're going to take your money and we're not going to do anything about that. We're going to take your money and we're going to spend it efficiently because we're good at good governance. Hey, how are the roads in the state? Hey, how are the parks in the state? How's anything in this state? That was your pitch? That's your pitch. We're not going to do anything about the taxes. We're going to keep them just as is. That was Bob Ferguson's wind-up and the pitch. Worst salesman ever. It's no wonder that Starbucks left. But it also shows something else. This decline that you're seeing here in Washington, this overtaxing, the companies moving out, it's 100% intentional. Because they think they know better. They think we can do with their money better than they ever could. We want that corporate money. We want everybody's money, and we can do better. So one of two things is either happening here. One, it's intentional because they want everybody reliant on the government for everything and they want full socialism. Or two, they want as much of your money as they can get because they know how to spend it better than you. Or option C, it's both. But either way, you are looking at a system that is designed for decline. It is not a bug. It is a feature. They want to destroy the businesses. Here you have a Seattle cornerstone, a Washington cornerstone. What are we known for if you don't know anything else aside from Nirvana? Nirvana, Starbucks. That's what you know. They're about to leave. It was going to be a huge PR disaster for them. And they wouldn't back off the taxes. They are gung-ho, full speed ahead on this plan to destroy Washington's economy. And whether that's because they think they can spend their money better than you, or whether that's because they want this socialist utopia, either way it is intentional. Either way it is by design. And in fact, I just got some new documents today that Starbucks wasn't the only company warning them about this. Other tech companies like T-Mobile and so many others were saying the exact same thing. So what's the next shoe that's going to drop? Who's the next company that's going to move out? So you can tout all the surveys from CNBC that you want. It don't make it true. In fact, even CNBC admits that there is no data whatsoever behind their BS survey. Speaking of BS, by the way, they keep saying how great and safe Seattle is. Well, Kevin and I went to go check out McStabby's earlier today. We'll tell you about how we survived when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So we've been talking about going to visit McStabby's, the McDonald's on the corner of 3rd between Pike and Pine, for probably since the World Cup ended last week, probably since Tuesday or Wednesday. Carol, every single day, texts in to see if we actually went to McStabby's, keeping us honest there, Carol. Thank you. And today, we actually went, and we can give you a full report. Now, Kevin, check me if I'm exaggerating or lying about anything that happened. So, we take the Dodge Charger I got from my friends down at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, drive on down there, find a parking space, and I definitely pulled a New Yorker, stopping traffic to back into a parking space, and it was an ugly parking job, but I got that space and blocked up traffic on 2nd Avenue. We're right so far. This all happened.
That is correct.
Okay. So, what happens? We walk over to McStabby's, and the first thing I notice is how many empty storefronts there are. It's all been covered over for the most part with this signage, so it doesn't look empty. It just looks decorated, but it's empty down there. There are a couple of things there, but that's it.
I would say the signage is to help not make it look empty, but also to put wood over the glass.
That's right.
Because it wasn't just one of those window clings that show you like the available office space. It was like boards.
Yes, to cover up, because each of those windows is a minimum of $10,000. So the wood is there, but it's painted nicely, so you don't really realize why it's there. We walk to McStabby's, and all the drug addicts are gone. And I'm kind of skeptical because I felt like an idiot because yesterday I said on air, I drove by and they were all there. There are, however, 2 cops and 3 neon-vested city ambassadors, and the city ambassadors from the Downtown Seattle Association are hosing down the sidewalk, and literally, I kid you not, they have a vat of bleach they are putting on the sidewalk. Kevin, check me on any of this.
Yeah, I don't know if it was bleach necessarily, but it was a cleaning product of some sort.
It looked like bleach to me.
But it had one of those chemical cleaners, pleasant smells, like a fake flour of sorts. Because when I walked it back out with my bag of very healthy McDonald's, I walked over the cleaner, and it was like, I guess that smells better than urine, I guess.
Now, I can't eat at McDonald's because it's not kosher. I can, however, have a Coke. So I treated Kevin to lunch because Kevin's a nice boss, and from time to time he brings me snacks. And I ordered the Coke, and Kevin's waiting for the food, and I go outside to talk to the cops. These cops made it very, very clear they were not speaking on behalf of the Seattle Police Department. They were just giving their observations. And what they observed was 3 times a day, they clear that corner. Every few hours, they come out in the daylight and clear that corner. And the cleaning crew comes with them to clear the corner. In fact, there was an unsheltered individual who was making himself at home in one of the abandoned doorways next to the McDonald's. And they're like, no, we got to go clear that guy out. And what they also told me was that if you come at night, it looks the way you come to expect it to look. Now, going into the McStabby's itself was fascinating. There was nothing happy about the Happy Meals in this. This was the most run-down, decrepit-looking Starbucks I have ever seen.
It's not a Starbucks.
Starbucks. I got Starbucks.
It's a McDonald's. But
yeah.
I was telling you that it's common now to have some of these where you come in and all you do is there's like a kiosk to order from.
Oh, sure.
Right? But this one
yeah.
was like the most blank, like wooden walls, like I guess Formica fake wood walls.
Yeah.
Very little windows, and 2 machines that you could come up to and touch screen order your stuff.
Yes.
An area where you could order through like a bank teller window.
Yes.
And then a pickup window right next to it.
That's
it in the room. It's tile floor, blank wooden walls, and 2 of those machines and 2 of the area to pick up and order.
What did we walk past to get into the McDonald's? We walked past a security guard. So you've got the 2 cops.
Yes.
You've got the armed security guard and 1 McDonald's employee who's at the kiosks and the ones behind the windows.
Yep.
The bank teller, where if you're at Western Union or a bank or a casino, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But you're at a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Now, something else. The hours on the door.
Correct.
That place closes at 5.
5 p.m. during the week.
5 o'clock, which means they know what happens when the sun goes down in the winter. They don't want to be there at all, and they get gone with the quickness. So is McStabby's open? Is the lobby open? Yeah, but is that going to be your top choice of McDonald's locations? Probably not. And if you go at the wrong time of day, you're going to have the riffraff that usually are outside that location.
Now, keep in mind, there isn't many choices downtown for fast service, fast food like that. There used to be a Wendy's down there. There used to be a Burger King. There used to be a McDonald's, all within that area. And I think that McDonald's is the only one that has survived. And depending on what's going on, what time of year it is, because I was thinking it was a nice day when we were down there. And there was tourists everywhere. And I was like, okay, when that all goes away, when the clouds come in, the rain comes in, the tourists go away.
Yeah.
I bet you anything that lobby gets shut down.
Also, where are you going to go to get McDonald's in the downtown-ish area?
You can't go and get fast food pretty much anywhere in the downtown
Well,
area.
hang on. Where you're going to go, and it's not technically downtown, but where's a tourist going to go or anybody else? They're going to go the one across from the Space Needle at Como Plaza.
Yeah, if it's convenient for you,
Sure.
right?
But why else would they be on that side of town? That's for the working stiffs, right? Who want a quick lunch or something on the go. And there's not that many working stiffs around. Now, mind you, there was a line, and it was towards the end of the lunch rush when we went down there. But the fact that 2 cops, 3 Seattle ambassadors, and 1 security guard are down there, yeah, they know what's in that area, and they have to clear it every 3 hours. That's not dealing with the problem. That's bailing water from a sinking ship, especially with all the closed stores and locations around it. So is the lobby open? Sure. Is the lobby going to be open past Labor Day? Unlikely.
And was it worth going down there to get my wannabe Chick-fil-A McCrispy that I ended up getting? No, it is not.
So
it was as unremarkable as McDonald's always is.
As it always is. So even though I crave for it because I can't have it.
Because it's chemically the smell is chemically made to make every human go, man, I really want that. And then when you have it, you're like, man, it smelled way better than it tastes.
Yeah, so I guess I wasn't missing out on much. So, Carol, that is what McStabby's is like. Now you have the full report of what it's like in downtown Seattle after the World Cup is over. When we come back, my friends, speaking of crime, Marco Rubio says the U.S. ain't going to listen to the International Criminal Court. Doesn't say anything about that in our Constitution. We'll tell you what he said to the rest of the world in the UN when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. When you talk about slimy and corrupt, we're usually talking about the swamp in Washington, D.C. Except today we're talking about the International Criminal Court at The Hague, which is partially a product of the United Nations and a tool for political nonsense and retribution to target whoever they want. In fact, we know what we always say about the UN around here, right?
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
So the International Criminal Court, basically what they are used for is countries to say, we don't like what America's doing, we don't like what Israel's doing. That is basically all the ICC does all day long. Talk about how much they love terrorist groups and how they're going to take down America and Israel on behalf of some terrorist organization. So yesterday, the State Department makes a big announcement. We're not going to play your stupid little games anymore. Marco Rubio, his Department of State, tweets out the following: America never agreed to a world tribunal that can override our own courts and the Constitution. Because what's happening is more and more countries are trying to make Donald Trump play by their rules by taking us to the International Criminal Court. Oh, they're contributing to climate change. Oh, they're being awful because they won't let illegal aliens into their country. Oh, they're awful because they're taking out Iran's nuclear weapons. Spare me. Spare me your nonsense. So Marco Rubio does a whole op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about why we're doing this. And this one right here is great. This little excerpt from it. Perhaps more polite and compliant nations would make their peace with that arrangement. But this is America. Our forefathers fought a revolution against a foreign power, quote, transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, which is exactly what the British used to do. Independence is our birthright. We don't intend to trade it for rule by a self-appointed priesthood of, quote, unquote, international law, because they don't follow their own laws. Now you're going to make up this international law BS, try and make us Americans live under your rules? No, absolutely not. According to the State Department, today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced a sweeping campaign to dismantle the threat posed by the International Criminal Court to U.S. sovereignty. Because guess what, guys? We pay for all this. Why should we keep paying for a court that keeps coming after us that has no bearing on American law? The campaign will feature a whole-of-government response to systematically disable the ICC's ability to operate, target American servicemen or officials, or otherwise threaten American sovereignty. The ICC poses an intolerable threat to U.S. sovereignty. It claims the authority to prosecute and even imprison American servicemen and officials operating on behalf of America's national interest. America never signed up for this. And all American presidents since the ICC's ratification have maintained that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over Americans. The ICC previously opened an investigation into U.S. servicemen and intelligence officers and has since refused to close these cases. The ICC, so you know what that means? If you're one of these service members, you can't go to other countries because you're worried about getting arrested by the ICC. I don't know why you would want to leave America anyway. The ICC now seeks to become an unaccountable global arbiter, positioning itself above and beyond the nation state as a supranational enforcement arm of a globalist bureaucracy empowered to persecute American servicemen and officials at will. No diplomatic option will be off limits in the campaign to dismantle the threat posed by the ICC to Americans. The campaign will feature a wide range of actions intended to ensure that International Criminal Court is incapable of threatening U.S. sovereignty or targeting Americans, including diplomatic calls from the Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary, ambassadors, and other members of senior leadership to foreign nations highlighting the abuses of the ICC and the risks posed to Americans and other nations, urging them to withdraw from the ICC. Nations that partner with American law enforcement and U.S. military, or that enjoy the benefits of U.S. security umbrella, are called upon to reject the ICC's purported authority to prosecute American officials and servicemen, increase scrutiny of nations that refuse to reject the ICC's false authority while relying on U.S. assistance, diplomatic calls urging other nations that, like America, are not party to the Rome Statute, to leverage their diplomatic networks to take similar actions alongside us, visa revocations and travel bans for ICC personnel, increased sanctions against the ICC and affiliated organizations. Boom. Here's something else. Why don't we just say we're just going to defund the UN? I think we could come up with better uses for The Hague. I think we could come up for better uses with the UN. I mean, the UN, we got that one right here. So I got an idea. Why don't we just say we could turn it into a homeless shelter? Or why don't we say we could turn it into a parking garage? Or why don't we say we could turn it into a McDonald's? Or why don't we say we could turn it into the Trump Hotel, Library, and Casino? We could do anything with the UN, and it would be more productive. It would be better off as the Democratic Party headquarters than it would be as what it's doing right now. That's not an easy thing for me to say. Why are we funding the International Criminal Court? Why are we funding the UN? What benefit is there to America or Americans from either of these organizations? Kudos to Marco Rubio. Hope he runs for president. Up next, my friends, if you think DEI is dead, it most certainly is not. And a hearing in Congress today showed what will happen if the Democrats win back Congress. It's scary. It's horrifying. It's woke insanity. We'll have that insane audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My second son wants to go and be a doctor one day. And I am petrified of which medical school he's going to get into, because are they even going to teach you basic biology? Are they even going to teach you what's a man, what's a woman, or is it going to be woke insanity? When people have up their degrees on their walls, I always question when they went to one of these woke schools if they're actually good at their job, or they're just affirmative action, or they were taught with this nonsense. I don't care about the color of your skin. I care if you are qualified to do surgery. I care if you are qualified to fly an airplane. I care if you are qualified to build a building. That is what I care about. Well, Dr. Sam Hawgood, not very good guy. This guy is the chancellor of the University of California, San Francisco. And he was testifying in Congress today because Congress is looking into this DEI insanity that is in college campuses. And for those of you who think Donald Trump killed it and went away, no, my friends. This is a little taste of what you can expect if the Democrats win back the House, win back the Senate, win back the White House. Give a listen.
Dr. Haygood, UCSF's classroom guide titled Framework for Gender and Sex Concepts in Teaching advises against using the term pregnant women. Instead, it says to use pregnant people. Who are pregnant people compared to pregnant women? Just curious.
So that is a part of a curriculum to help our students who are facing a wide diversity of patients. Of course, the vast majority of pregnancies are in women, and I have absolutely no problem with using the word pregnant women. I use it myself.
Has a non-biological woman ever had a baby?
A transgender person can.
That's not a biological woman. Has a non-biological woman ever had a baby?
I would reiterate, we take care of transgender patients.
Okay, let's stop right there. A man cannot get pregnant. That movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger was stupid. Okay, it's a dumb movie called Junior. Do not watch it. They tried to pitch it as like a Twins sequel. It wasn't. It was bad. It was stupid. So, this guy, who is the chancellor of a medical school in the United States of America, is now saying men can get pregnant. No, they cannot. These are women identifying as men. Oh, wasn't done with the crazy. Give a listen.
We have transgender programs for both pediatrics and adults. We do not do surgery under the age of 18.
Okay.
And we abide by federal and state law, as well as the recommendations of 35 professional associations in North America.
Well, then you are ignoring the HHS, you are ignoring the UK, you are ignoring Finland, ignoring Sweden, ignoring...
It's not a program that I am an expert in.
Okay.
But those clinicians that focus on this area are continuously evaluating international literature in this field.
But you are involving medical students.
I'm sorry, my eyesight is,
okay,
even with glasses, is not very good.
But your transgender clinic does continue to give puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones to children.
Correct.
Okay, then guess what? You're doing those procedures on kids. That is what is happening at that medical school. Years from now, people will judge us, depending on which direction this country goes in. Either they will say, how come they didn't do more transgender surgeries? Or they will say, how come they were butchering children who had perfectly healthy anatomy? How come they were giving them puberty blockers? This is insane. Europe is already stopping this program. Yet here in the United States, we're still doing it. A man is a man, a woman is a woman, and no matter what you cut off or what you add, it doesn't change your DNA. Up next, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. And we have a local candidate who said she specifically hid her support of LGBTQ rights because she's worried about Muslims. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, updates in the case of the teenage wrestler who was allegedly sexually assaulted by a male wrestler in a high school match. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right, my friends. This week, you have a chance to win a trip on a Mississippi River cruise or get $3,000 in cold, hard cash. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Do not text your name. Do not text your address. Do not text your phone number. Do not text, "Hey, Ari, you are the most handsome radio host in the world." Even though it's true, don't text it or you won't have a chance to win these fantabulous prizes. Today's word is mud. As in, at the bottom of the Mississippi River, there is mud. As in, lining the banks of the Mississippi River, there is mud. As in, that river cruise is going to churn up mud as it goes down the river. Text the word mud, M-U-D, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win. Thank you to our in-house Pink Floyd cover band for joining us every single day to give us the right mood music for your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. Also, a reminder, you only have until 4:30 to text that in. You text it afterwards, and you are not going to be entered to win, and you are going to clog up my text line. So please do that right now. Do not do that later. Switching gears, do you remember the name Melissa Chowdhury?
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Melissa Chowdhury is running for Congress against a Democrat, Adam Smith. Melissa Chowdhury is one of the Hamasniks who supported the insanity out at University of Washington, and she is married to a guy who is a serial fraudster. Well, she did an interview with The Stranger. I don't normally quote The Stranger, the far left rag here in Seattle, but this was too good not to, because it really revealed everything about the Democrat Party and what's going on with the DSA and these far left activists. I have said for a very, very long time now that what's happening is these far left socialist, communist Marxists know that people will vote blue no matter who. And if they get the endorsement of the Democrat Party, they will get those votes. So what they have done is they have infiltrated local Democratic parties. So this district Democrats and that district Democrats, they take it over. They give a Democratic endorsement to these lunatics, and then they get them elected. So basically what they're doing is they're pulling a Buffalo Bill or a Hannibal Lecter. You pick which one. It's the same movie, Silence of the Lambs. They're either trying to build a skin suit, sew a skin suit out of the Democratic Party, like Buffalo Bill. It puts the lotion in the basket. It does it whenever it's told. It puts the lotion in the basket. It does it or it gets the hose again. Right? That's what they're doing. Or, 30-year-old spoiler alert, they are what Hannibal Lecter does to escape, and wearing that dude's face as a mask to pretend to be the cop to escape the jail. Sorry for the spoiler alert. Kiddos, do not watch that movie. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. I love it. I think it's great. I don't like the middle one. I don't like Hannibal. But I like the Red Dragon and I like the Silence of the Lambs. That's just me. I didn't like the TV show either. Okay. That's my movie review for the day of a 30-year-old movie. Basically, that's what the Democrats are doing. They are the Democratic Socialists. They are pretending to be Democrats so they can get elected. And they target these off-year elections. They target these small races. Now, I noticed that part of the DSA's platform is abolish the Senate. And one of their reasons they give for abolishing the Senate is it's a whole bunch of elitist white people. It's a whole bunch of elites running the Senate. They aren't in the House of Representatives also? Last time I checked, Nancy Pelosi, one of the most loaded ones, and she's in the House of Representatives. Why the Senate? Because it is very hard for them to win these statewide elections. Because a lot of these blue states are actually blue cities, like Seattle, surrounded by a red state, Washington. But unfortunately, there's more people who live in that blue city, and they control the red state, like Washington, like New York, like some other places as well. Well, Melissa Chowdhury gave away the game in this discussion with the stranger. So she admitted that the reason that she is not talking about how she supports LGBTQ rights, LGBTQ issues, is she was concerned about how Muslim voters would react. Now, Melissa Chowdhury, I don't know what her maiden name is, but this very, very white lady married a Pakistani man and now wears a full head covering and is not very proficient at it. It keeps falling off, by the way. So I can't tell if it's real or it's virtue signaling, but my guess is she's one of these white progressives who want to show how virtuous she was, so she married this Pakistani man and adopted his politics. The controversy has prompted calls from the Washington Stonewall Democrats and even one of Chowdhury's own Democratic endorsers to reconsider their support while raising questions about honesty, political strategy, and the direction of her campaign. Here's what happened. She was doing an endorsement interview with the stranger, with their election control board. Having done these before, I will tell you what it is like. They basically get the editorial staff of the stranger together, and they have a debate between the candidates. Who's sitting next to Melissa Chowdhury during this debate? Let's see, it's Adam Smith. He's not there. I don't believe he was at this thing. And Shama Sawant, the Marxist, the former Seattle City Council member who brought you very, very popular programs, such as taxing Amazon, which caused Amazon to leave Seattle for Bellevue, such as the higher minimum wage, $15 minimum wage, which caused lots of restaurants to close, less hours for a lot of workers. So while she's there, the stranger asked her why her campaign website contained no mention of LGBTQ rights, despite her professed support for them. Chowdhury acknowledged she was, quote, careful about her Muslim constituents because a lot of Muslims do not feel that way, unfortunately. Now, we've discussed the LGBTQ, the queers for Hamas. We have, and how it's like chickens for KFC. We have discussed this at great lengths. But basically, she's giving it away, and she's saying, well, there's a lot of people in the Muslim world who don't really agree with this, so I'm not going to put it on my website, or I might alienate them, and they're not going to vote for me. Number one, a lot of not-so-observant Muslims out there who don't care and are going to vote for the Democrat. Number two, a lot of very observant Democrats, Muslims out there, who are going to vote for you anyway because they know somebody like you is going to do whatever they want. But, once again, wearing that skin suit so they can get elected. She told the endorsement committee, which previously backed her for a 2024 run, that she supports LGBTQ protections in housing, employment, healthcare, and justice, but admitted she deliberately omitted those positions from her public campaign platform in an effort to avoid alienating portions of her Muslim voter base. Can I ask a question? What protections in housing, employment, healthcare, and justice do members of the LGBTQ community not have right now? If you have an issue, take it to the Civil Rights Department, file a civil rights claim. You will likely win, especially in a place in Seattle. What protections do they not have? Now, here's my favorite thing. In one of these, you are 100% on the record. You are talking to a media outlet for their endorsement. And during the same meeting, Chowdhury attempted to make what she believed was an off-the-record disclosure. She said, I don't want you to publish this, before explaining that if elected to Congress as a Democrat, she intended to become the first Green Party member of Congress that would switch parties while I'm in office. So you're admitting that you're using the Democrat Party to get elected and that you're actually a member of the Green Party. But once again, you're pulling a Buffalo Bill or a Hannibal Lecter because you know it will win you the votes of the Democratic voters who don't bother to do their research and just vote blue no matter who. Now, to the stranger's credit, They immediately reminded her that the interview was being conducted entirely on the record, adding, if there's something you don't want said, don't say it at the meeting. She's literally sitting next to Shama Sawant while this is going on. Andrew Ashiofu, who is, I believe, chair of Seattle's LGBTQ rights committee or something like that, but he's also chair of the Washington Stonewall Democrats, and that's an LGBTQ advocacy organization within the Democratic Party, called on Democratic organizations to reconsider their support for Chowdhury. Quote, as chair of the Washington State Stonewall Democrats, I want to speak plainly about what we expect from anyone seeking support in Washington's 9th Congressional District. Honesty, transparency, and an unwavering commitment to LGBTQ plus rights. He criticized her admission that she intended to switch to the Green Party after being elected as a Democrat and her request that the information not be made public. He said Democratic voters deserve the truth, not concealment. Endorsing bodies deserve respect, not attempts to manipulate their process. Now, I got a lot of issues with this guy, Andrew Ashifu. In fact, I think he celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk, and he's a pretty awful human being. But he's not wrong here. If you're running as a Democrat, you should be a Democrat. You going to call out anybody else? Any of these other DSA members? You going to call out Shama Sawant? He also condemned Chowdhury's admission that she intentionally omitted LGBTQ protections from her campaign platform because she was careful about her Muslim constituents. Now, this guy, who advocates for LGBTQ plus rights, is saying LGBTQ plus rights are not optional. Our community is not expendable. They are foundational to any candidate seeking Democratic support because those are his issues. Now, I will ask this dude, how do you feel about Hamas? How do you feel about Israel? How do you feel about freeing Palestine? And I'm sure we'll get an entertaining answer because this guy probably has no idea what he's talking about. But he urged Democratic organizations to revisit their endorsements. Quote, when new information reveals misalignment with those principles, it is appropriate for organizations to revisit their decisions and reaffirm their commitment to integrity. The 33rd Legislative District Democrats, one of the few Democratic organizations to endorse Chowdhury, also publicly questioned whether she had been honest with Democratic voters. Chair Jackie Boschk said the executive board was concerned that Chowdhury has not denied that she would consider changing her political party affiliation after winning as a Democrat with our support. She said, quote, our bylaws allow us to endorse any candidate who shares our progressive values, and we have done so when a candidate has honestly shared their party position. So her dishonesty undermines our Democratic Party beliefs. She added the more alarming matter is her initial unwillingness to state her support for the LGBTQIA plus community. To support them as a marginalized community, we need leaders who will stand up and actively defend those who are facing daily attacks for being their authentic selves. Interesting. You endorsed a woman whose entire platform is about how Israel is evil and pro-Hamas. You endorsed this woman. You know what's the only country in the Middle East where members of the LGBTQIA plus community have equal rights? Israel. You know the only one with the Pride Parade? Israel. You know the only one where women are allowed to drive cars? Israel. And yet you guys backed the woman who's anti-Israel. Well done. Although the 33rd District Democrats said their current bylaws do not allow them to revoke an endorsement, Bosch said the executive board has already begun changing those rules because of Chowdhury's case. Based on the situation, others like Graham Plattner of Maine. Oh, that's great. That's great. He's now a verb. He's now an adjective. He's now all the things because he's so terrible. Our executive board found it prudent to immediately start the process to allow us to rescind endorsements in the future. Chowdhury's political profile is largely centered on opposition to Israel rather than district-specific issues. During both her 2024 and 2026 congressional campaigns, because she ran last cycle too, she supported pro-Hamas actions at the University of Washington, including a violent Gaza encampment at the occupation of the school's brand new engineering building, resulting in more than $1 million in damage. She has also aligned herself with activists who have defended Hamas following the October 7th massacre and received endorsements from figures criticized for anti-Semitic rhetoric. Now, you know what'd be really, really fun? You go to all these Democrats that backed her, like Rami Al-Kabra, the deputy mayor of Bothell, and say, hey, you still support this lady because she said no to the LGBTQ rights? Hang on a second. Aren't you a Muslim person? And how do you feel about the LGBTQ rights? Somebody with more time should really go and start asking everybody who endorsed her if they're going to keep the endorsement or rescind the endorsement, and ask if this is blowing up the party. Don't forget her husband, Muhammad Zahid Chowdhury, a convicted fraudster from Pakistan who was arrested by ICE during a scheduled citizenship interview. She has gained some national notoriety for defending this guy. You know what he did? He was a cab driver in Australia. He found a passport in the back of his cab. Rather than returning it, he used it to try and open bank accounts and got convicted for it, then lied on the U.S. immigration application. Have you ever been convicted of a felony somewhere else? Lied about that, then attempted to defraud the U.S. Armed Services and the U.S. government for disability money as well. This is a guy who sometimes is in a wheelchair, sometimes not in a wheelchair. I think it's depending on that. And he's been fighting his deportation for decades now. So, Chowdhury posted a lengthy response, insisting she has long supported LGBTQ plus rights. She claimed to have founded a gay-straight alliance while in high school, having LGBTQ family members and friends, and pledged to protect LGBTQ Americans if elected. Just not if the Muslims ask her not to, right? That's what it is. She argued the endorsement interview had been one of her least proud moments of her campaign and claimed that she was suffering from an inquisition. Well, you never expect the Inquisition. The Inquisition, what a show, the Inquisition. Here we go, we're on a mission. Okay, I don't need to keep doing that, but you all saw the movie, right? Kevin did see the movie? Right, Kevin doesn't like the Mel Brooks stuff. He never saw History of the World. That is truly one of the funniest scenes in any movie ever. So let me make sure I got this right. The gal who supports Hamas says she's suffering from an inquisition. Oh, how 1492 of you. She says she's suffering from an inquisition. You cannot make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. You just can't. But it really tears the mask off all these DSA and far left extremists who know that they're using the Democrat Party to get elected. And the Democrat Party is so worried about losing their own power, they're too stupid to kick these guys out. They should just say what is going on, say our party's being taken over by a bunch of radical jihadis, but they won't do it because they're afraid of the monsters they created. Like Shama Sawant. Shama Sawant, she's a Marxist. She doesn't even pretend to be a Democrat, by the way. She left all those Democrat socialist organizations because they're too warm and fuzzy for her. She wants full communism. She wants full jihadism. That's what at least she's honest about it. So, Shama Sawant started sending out texts because she's running for Congress against Adam Smith too. She started sending out texts attacking Israel, attacking AIPAC, demonizing Jews, talking about communism, and she sent them to the Jewish community in Seattle because that's inside the district. How do you think that's going to work out for you? Now, if you got one of these insane texts from Shama Sawant, I know some of you like to respond to these texts. If you got one of these texts and you responded colorfully or funny or something like that, I want you to send it to me, ari@kvi.com. I want you to send me a screenshot. Not if you didn't do it, not what you would say. If you actually responded to one of these texts, I want you to send me a screenshot, ari@kvi.com, and you might be featured over on my social media channels because I would love to read these things on air. I would love to see what you wrote because the way I found out about the story, I didn't get these texts, but a whole bunch of people in my synagogues did, and they were texting me their responses this morning, and they are chef's kiss. They are delicious. And I think you'll enjoy hearing more of them on the air. So if you got one of these texts and you responded to it, please send it over to me. ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. Speaking of Democrats pretending to be something they're not, Ro Khanna is getting called out by basically everybody for this fake story he completely created about being detained in Israel, which clearly didn't happen, even according to his own video. I guess you want to be a Democrat, you just say you hate Israel, and boom, you can run for president. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, sign up to become a KVI insider over at KVI.com. That way you find out about events, contests, plus also reminder to subscribe to our podcast on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. More drama surrounding Ro Khanna, the socialist who is worth $400 million. That Ro Khanna, the congressman from California, who wants to be president of the United States. So he sees which way the wind is blowing. And this is a guy who says, I want to be president of the United States. And the only way I'm going to get the Democratic nomination is to be the most anti-Israel, anti-Semitic person ever. Now, Ro Khanna has another problem. Ro Khanna was the #1 backer of Graham Plattner, the Nazi tattoo sporting alleged rapist who was running on the Democratic ticket to be the senator from Maine and had to quit the race in disgrace. So he needs something to distract. So what does he do? He goes to Israel, tries to pick a fight with the IDF, and hopes that the cliques will carry him forward as an anti-Israel lunatic so he can run to become Democratic presidential nominee. There are so many things that say so much about the Democratic Party here, but there's also a lot of things that say so much about Ro Khanna here. Now, we discussed the story yesterday, but more and more has come out debunking this. I want to give you a comparison about what he did. So if an official from, let's say, England, the UK, friendly nation with the United States, flew to the US, did not coordinate with the State Department, and then demanded to get a tour of a U.S. military base or tried to get into a U.S. military base, what would happen? If an official from Germany, which we have really good relationships with right now, if an official from Germany flew to the U.S., and then tried to get into an ICE facility, what would happen? What would happen? They would be stopped. Their identity would be verified, and then they would be told, no, thank you. Now, what's interesting is Ro Khanna was trying to get into an area that is currently being patrolled and monitored by the Israeli Defense Forces. He tried to get into that area. They held up his car for about 90 minutes because guess what? He was with a quote-unquote journalist who actually is a shill for anti-Israel groups but works for the New York Times, so that tracks. Somebody who is known to them, and this guy's claiming to be a congressman, and they had no idea that he was coming because guess what? They hadn't coordinated with Israel. They hadn't coordinated with the U.S. Embassy. They hadn't coordinated with the Israeli Embassy. They hadn't coordinated with the Israeli State Department, hadn't coordinated with anybody, and just showed up. What do you think would happen if I show up at an ICE facility and I said, hey, I'm Ari Hoffman from Talk Radio 570 KVI. Can I come in? They would say not just no, but hell no. I have to coordinate through our ICE contacts in order to get permission to enter those facilities. What if I decide to try and go to Fort Lewis? What if I decide to try and get on base without permission? Let me tell you, I ran a youth trip there. I had to get orders for those kids to be on base. It was a whole to-do. I know what would happen. I had to go through, guess what? The U.S. military to get there. So Ro Khanna invents this whole story about being detained, but it turns out he was offered to coordinate through Israel. He was offered to coordinate through the U.S. State Department. He declined both of those because he wanted the fight. That's what he wanted. Now we have exclusive audio of what this was like with Ro Khanna trying to get into the spot.
This Graham thing is a total disaster. It's killing my image. We need to do something about this. I got it. We go to Palestine. Everyone hates Israel right now. It'll be perfect.
Real talk, do you think it's too much if I announce my presidential run when we're in Gaza?
Feels a bit random, don't you think?
I think Gen Z is going to eat it up.
Sir, should we let the Israeli government know we're here?
Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. We have to catch them off guard. That's the whole point, you idiot.
Wait, why are there mansions everywhere? Where's the rubble? Where's the rubble?
Are you sure this is Palestine?
Sir, the Israeli ambassador's office just reached out. They offered to set you up with some October 7 survivors while you're here.
Ignore those losers. Nobody cares about Israelis. We're here for a photo op at the Palestinian border to make Israel look bad.
Wait, are those settlers with the soldiers? Pull over there. Let's see if we can get detained.
Hi, sorry to stop you. Can I ask where you're headed? This isn't really an area you can drive through freely.
Am I being detained?
No?
Can we get some of the male soldiers to come detain us instead? These women are all way too hot. Nobody's gonna believe I was scared of her.
I need more shots of people suffering. Do we feel like we have enough B-roll? Okay, great. Let's get out of this shithole already. Is this really how Israel should be treating potential long-shot presidents?
So, that one right there. Sorry about that. That one right there. This guy, Ro Khanna. We know that's fake. We know that's parody. But Ro Khanna, trying to get into Israel when, guess what? He didn't have permission from anybody, now is being debunked by the ambassador for the U.S., Mike Huckabee, is saying absolutely not. You've got the Israel ambassador to the U.S. saying, Yechiel Leiter, who's saying, yeah, we offered to coordinate with this guy, and you know what? He didn't want to have anything to do with us. He didn't want to meet with the October 7th hostages. He didn't want to actually get permission to go into these areas, which we would have granted. Oh, and here's the other thing. He was allowed to go in, and then he tries filming a video about the suffering Palestinians, and guess what? He was in front of a giant mansion while doing that. His entire story has been completely debunked. But this is the new Democrat Party. To go forward and claim that you hate the Jews, that you hate Israel, and then guess what? They might elect you to office. That's what he's hoping for. Then you might get their endorsement. This is the Democrat Party. Liars who then say whatever they can to prove to the far left how radical they are. When we come back, my friends, you know that case about that girl wrestler that we've been covering, the teenage girl wrestler, who's actually suing Washington for the fact that she got assaulted by a male while she was wrestling? We've got some updates on the case when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We've been covering the case of Callie Keeler and her mother, Stephanie Brown. You might remember Callie Keeler. She is the wrestler right here in Washington who got unknowingly paired up with a male competitor and in the process allegedly got sexually assaulted while on the mat. And while we've been covering what's been happening to her and the legal actions about it, now her lawyers from the Alliance Defending Freedom is trying to make sure that not only do boys stay out of girls' sports, but also parents are informed of what's going on with their students, which lines up with a couple of initiatives that we've been talking about here on the show. Joining us now to discuss from the Alliance Defending Freedom, Senior Counsel Kate Anderson. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Such a pleasure. I wish it was under better circumstances. So tell us exactly what this motion does.
Yeah, well, what happened to Callie Keeler shouldn't happen to any girl. As you said, she was matched against a male athlete, instructed by her coaches to go onto the mat, and she had no idea, and neither did her mother. She was then sexually assaulted, and there's been issues with the investigation since, and the school in particular has let Callie and her mom know that if Callie returns to wrestling, they will not promise her that she won't be matched against a male athlete again, despite what has happened to her. And so that's the heart of our motion. We've gone to the court. We filed a case against the school district and the number of officials involved in this and the policies all the way up to the state level. But the issue is that Callie cannot continue wrestling. This is a girl who's been wrestling since she was 4, and she loves it. But she cannot wrestle without risking this happening to her again. So we've asked the court to step in early and make sure that she can continue wrestling, and that the school is required to not match her against a male athlete while this case is going forward. And if they cannot do that for some reason based on the bracketing in a wrestling match, they need to let her mother know so her mother can exercise her parental rights to keep her daughter safe.
So that's the part that I think is the strongest point. At least let the parent know. Okay, if we have this dumb law in place that puts girls at risk, at least people should be able to have the opt-out. But they're not even giving her that, right?
Absolutely. And that feels like the bare minimum that needs to happen. But the school district's decision not to let Callie's mom, Stephanie, know meant that Stephanie let her daughter go out on the mat, not knowing she was wrestling a male athlete. Stephanie objects to that for many reasons, including just the difference in size and strength of men, as well as how physical and personal wrestling can be. She had no idea something like this could happen, and yet now the school district not only didn't inform her on the front end, but now is telling her the same situation will happen again if her daughter wrestles.
That's crazy. We're talking with Senior Counsel Kate Anderson from the Alliance Defending Freedom. And something that gets me as a parent is her mom was filming this wrestling match while this was happening. And you see the look on her daughter's face. But from a parent's perspective, you don't know what's going on. Is the kid just losing? Is the kid just freaking out? But there's some genuine concern there. And as a parent, you don't know what's going on. You're just cheering on your kid. So seeing that video again must be horrifying for her mother, now knowing what was happening at that time, and the fact that it could, God forbid, happen again because the school, which wouldn't investigate it in the first place until the media got involved, is now not going to tell her if her daughter's going head-to-head with a boy.
The whole thing is heartbreaking for this entire family. And as you said, like, this is going on. It never occurred to Stephanie or to her daughter, Callie, that this was even a possibility that she would be matched against a male wrestler. So when this is going on in real time, that was not even a thought in their head that this could happen, which is why it's so important that parents know about these policies, that school districts disclose these things to parents so that they can make the decision that's best for their child and protect their safety and privacy.
Just to play devil's advocate for a minute, because we are the most pro-devil show on the airwaves, regarding this, doesn't it seem like some people might make the argument that it's superseding the law, it's superseding the voters who have these two things on the initiative beforehand, and it's trying to create new law through the courts?
Yes, the courts make these kinds of laws all the time, and they enforce the law all the time. The Supreme Court just weighed in on this issue of women's sports, saying that states may protect women athletes in their sports and in their locker rooms. Callie's case brings forward the issue of must they inform parents and students so that they can make the best decision possible for them, and they can do that in a way that protects everybody's privacy and everyone's safety.
Well, Kate, we really appreciate you joining us today. We appreciate what you and the Alliance Defending Freedom are doing, especially as a parent whose daughter is competing in sports this year for the first time. I'm freaking out a little bit because she competes in Washington State, and I'm a little concerned about who she might be going against. So I really hope you guys win this motion. I really hope you guys win this case, and we are definitely pulling for you, and you have hundreds of thousands of Washingtonians behind you.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate you joining us today. That's Kate Anderson from the Alliance Defending Freedom. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Anytime Democrats talk about climate change, they make it sound like the world's ending. How much of this nonsense has been debunked already? But don't worry, you give us enough of your tax money, everything's going to be perfectly fine. You'll feel fine. You'll feel good about yourself, as a matter of fact. Well, Governor Bob Ferguson...
Yeah, it's not my name. All right, Turd Ferguson.
...decided to give a little announcement the other day about how our state is doing with regard to the battle against climate change. Inspiring words. Truly inspiring words. I want you to listen to them right now.
In the face of, a federal government that just seems hell-bent on rolling back every ounce of progress we have made over the years on addressing climate, and then going even further in reverse from there. The good news is Washington State and the city of Seattle, in the face of that, we're not just throwing up our hands and saying nothing we can do, quite the opposite. That more and more our state is viewed as a national leader on moving forward, despite what we're seeing at the federal level. As discouraging as things are in Washington, D.C., that is not stopping us. It's not stopping you. That's why you're all in this room. People look to Washington State as an inspiration of these issues, and that's largely due to all the work that so many of you are engaged in. So I just want to wrap up by saying thanks. It's inspiring to be governor of a state where you have a room full of people like this on a beautiful day. This is what they want to talk about. This is what they want to do. This is how they want to change the world. So thanks so much for your support. Really appreciate it.
Woo! Where's the data that proves any of that? Where is the data that proves anything he just said? In fact, the data shows the complete opposite. The data, wait a minute. I don't have the data. They won't release the data. They actually pulled it from their websites because that just ain't true at all. We know that our friends over at the Washington Policy Center have been trying to get the data for ages from them, and they won't give it up. They will not give it up. So what are we talking about here? Oh, and by the way, all you guys have done is made gas more expensive. So you could pay for ridiculous projects that don't actually do anything to combat climate change. What was it? Like 90% of the money in the billions of dollars you've gotten out of us in higher gas fees, higher utility fees, all that is just going to nonprofits, to people like Reuben Carlisle to manage or tell them how to get grants from the Climate Commitment Act, and not actually doing anything to address climate change. Nothing at all. So the whole thing was a grift? The whole thing was a grift? Yes, the whole thing was a grift. And now you're out there celebrating it. Cool. Where's the evidence? Show me the data. You say we're a leader on combating climate change? Where's the data? Seriously, show it to me. Hey, it's hazy outside today. Must be climate change. It's a little hazy. I'm having trouble seeing some of the mountains. It's a little too hazy. Must be climate change. It's snowing today. Climate change. Oh, it's hot today. Climate change. Oh, what's going on the East Coast? Climate change because it's so hot. Or maybe it's just weather. Where's your actual data? Speaking of dangerous gas, by the way, sorry to get a little graphic on this one. Have you guys heard about the diarrhea-causing parasite? Have you heard about this coast to coast? I shouldn't be laughing about it. But people apparently have this parasite that's causing them to run to the bathroom every few minutes because, well, it's basically messing with your guts. And now people are wondering where it's coming from. And now, I kid you not, they think it's coming from Taco Bell. I'm sorry. Look, I don't eat the food because it's not kosher, but look, we all know the reputation that Taco Bell had before all this. What do you think this is going to do for the sale of tacos and burritos over there? Federal and state health officials are looking into whether Taco Bell restaurants may have played a role in a major cyclospora outbreak as investigators examine lettuce and other salad ingredients as a possible source of contamination. Two sources familiar with the investigation told the Washington Post that agencies are reviewing whether Taco Bell's locations could be connected to the spread of cyclosporiasis, a gastrointestinal illness caused by a microscopic parasite. Yo quiero Taco Bell. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services said Monday that the lettuce And salad greens are currently considered a possible source of the outbreak. The investigation comes as health officials track a surge in these cases across the United States. Michigan has reported more than 2,600 cases, making it, the largest outbreak of the parasite in the state's history and one of the biggest in the country in recent years. According to the Associated Press, signs posted at some Detroit area Taco Bell restaurants recently said certain ingredients, including lettuce, the onions, the cilantro onions, pico de gallo, and guacamole were unavailable due to a national recall. I got a question. Why are you blaming Taco Bell as opposed to whoever supplied Taco Bell with the ingredients? Because odds are they supplied other people with those ingredients too, right?
That's what I heard the first time when this came out, was that Taco Bell was just preemptively not serving, and I believe the term was their fresh products.
Isn't everything supposed to be fresh?
No, that's Taco Time. This is Taco Bell.
I see.
So, and I was like, that's an interesting term because it sounded to me like the provider of the stuff was one of the ones that.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, that must suck for Taco Bell because you're getting all your ingredients from this provider. This provider did the thing and you get stuck with it. But let me ask everybody a real question. Does Taco Bell not normally cause these problems?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Taco Bell as well. Of the things at Taco Bell to give you explosive diarrhea, the last thing on your mind would be the actual vegetables that are there. I mean, I know it's a common thing that like lettuce in mass-produced lettuce is a problem. Like,
yes,
you really have to thoroughly clean that stuff.
Yes.
Whenever someone gets sick, it's usually like, well, I had some salad there. So,
well, that's what happened to me in Mexico. I went to Mexico, couldn't eat most of the food. Me and my wife didn't think it through. And guess what? We ate most of the veggies and we came back and let's just say we were a lot lighter. That was the best weight loss program ever. Not pleasant. Would not recommend. But yeah.
But you got invented foods at Taco Bell that's like the quesarito. And you're like, that's probably doing more than diarrhea. It's probably, it's just so fascinating, the stuff they come up with.
Yes, and probably gutting out your insides. Not good for you, not actual food. When we come back, final hour free-for-all. You want to tell us what you think about Taco Bell, but also we're going to tell you about Turd Ferguson and how he claims businesses are doing great here even as they're fleeing the state. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, if you think DEI is dead, you are wrong, my friends. It's about to come back with a vengeance. But before we get to any of that, you guys are funny on the text line. You guys are funny today. Our last story talking about the explosive diarrhea out of Taco Bell. And then I said we were going to do a story about Turd Ferguson. Paul says, a turd story is a great segue out of Taco Bell. Okay. He also says Taco Bell, run to the toilet. The old commercials used to say run to the border. Toilet seemed appropriate right now. Old joke. Anyway. Switching gears over to our friend, the governor, Bob Ferguson.
Yeah, it's not my name. All right, Turd Ferguson.
So, Turd Ferguson is talking about how great our business climate is. Can we analyze this for a second? You have a 37% office vacancy rate in downtown Seattle. Those businesses are either moving out of Seattle or more often, moving out of Washington state entirely. That is the highest office vacancy rate in the U.S., and it is increasing. So how can you possibly claim that we have a good business environment? Your tax revenues are down. We don't even know how bad it is yet because we don't know how many businesses have left yet, but your tax revenue is down, and you are claiming it's fine. Turd Ferguson is like the little dog in the meme where it's sitting at the table and the room is around them on fire. It's fine. Everything's fine. That's Turd Ferguson. Well, what is he basing this on? He is basing this on a CNBC poll, the CNBC study. I'm not even going to call it a study, a survey. I'm just going to call it a story because it is completely made up. CNBC did this thing talking about the best business climates and the worst business climates in major states and cities. And the funny thing about this is that, what do you know? Every single red state is a bad business climate, and every single blue state is a great business climate. Even though we know that the wealth exodus from New York City is so bad that they are down at least $11 billion in tax revenue. You're going to tell me New York is doing just fine? They say Texas is terrible. Texas is so bad. Meanwhile, a whole bunch of companies are fleeing California and going to Texas. If you remember that map we used to share and that study we used to share, where did everybody from California go during COVID? They didn't go to Florida. They went two places. They went to Austin, Texas, and they went to Seattle, Washington. Those are the biggest places where they went to. 1 million Californians came here. They came here because they still want to be in a blue state, and now a whole bunch of them are fleeing this blue state. Ironically, some of them are going back to San Francisco because at least San Francisco elected a common sense mayor who is turning around the city slowly turning around the city. Here we're doubling down on crazy. The people who are more conservative went to Texas, so the people who are more business friendly went to Texas. So what is Turd Ferguson actually talking about? He's talking about the study on CNBC. Now, CNBC admits that this study is not based on data. What is it actually based on? How much you sell your own state. So because Turd Ferguson and others go out there talking about how great Seattle is all time and how great Washington is all time, they give them a higher ranking. Forget the fact that you have a 37% office vacancy rate. Forget the fact that you just lost a major corporation like Starbucks and you're losing more than that. That didn't stop Turd Ferguson from parroting these lies over on social media.
Hey everybody, Bob Ferguson, governor of Washington State here with some good news. CNBC does an annual ranking of the best or worst states to do business in the United States. Last year, my first year as governor, we ranked 14th. The rankings just came out. We moved up 3 spots to number 11. So we're making progress in our path to make Washington the absolute best state to do business. Next year, we're going to crack that top 10. We're on our way to number 1. Appreciate all the partnership we have to make Washington literally the best place to do business anywhere in the United States.
What a laughing stock. What an absolute laughing stock. CNBC is, Bob Ferguson is for parroting that. Anybody with half a brain is going to look at that and say, with a 37% office vacancy rate, there is no way you're a great state to do business. With a place like Starbucks leaving, you are not a great place to do business. Well, now Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, the former CEO, wrote a new op-ed in the Wall Street Journal talking about how bad the business climate is. So this is a guy who wants to be a Democratic presidential candidate. This is a guy who supported every Democrat cause, and he is calling out the canary in the coal mine, Washington State, for bad Democratic policies. He is calling it out for how bad it is for business. Schultz was talking about Stoke Space, which is a rocket startup in Kent that is, he said he's not even sure they're going to stay here, just like how Starbucks isn't going to stay here. He's talking about how Washington was once the place where you wanted to create a business, and now everybody's leaving. Quote, Washington used to be a favored destination for entrepreneurs because state leaders understood the vital role businesses play in creating jobs and sustaining a tax base that enables government to operate. He says, nope, it's out. He says because of all the taxes, like the income tax, corporate leaders and small entrepreneurs are concerned about anti-business statements and tax proposals of Seattle's new inept mayor, socialist Katie Wilson. He added the state's education system is failing to deliver graduates ready to work in manufacturing, aerospace, and technology businesses that will help reindustrialize the U.S. He says it requires a fairer tax system that doesn't penalize entrepreneurs while handing out benefits to big tech. So he's still advocating for taxes. He just says you've gone too far in these taxes. So Bob Ferguson is literally saying, well, everything's fine, everything's great. It's not. There's a new poll out on Como News. Now, with regards to Como polls, you can be from anywhere. You don't have to be from Washington State. They're not scientific. You just click it. But normally, there's not this big of a disparity. It says, how would you vote on an initiative to repeal Washington State's millionaire's tax? Would you vote to revoke? Would you vote to keep the tax? Or you need more information? 93% of respondents said they would vote to revoke the state's millionaire tax because everybody knows it's actually an income tax and everybody knows it's coming for them. So to try and reframe it as the millionaire tax, the Democrats are trotting out all their talking points and many media outlets are picking it up. What story was this poll in? Well, one from Como News, which is parroting the false talking points of Democrats like Turd Ferguson. According to Como News, opponents of repealing the millionaire's tax are launching their campaign Tuesday morning, backed by Governor Bob Ferguson and several unions. He says, I think most Washingtonians want to see the kind of tax reform that this initiative would threaten, said Washington House Majority Leader Joe Fitzgibbon. Was he drunk at the time? Because that's not the case, and we know he has a bit of a problem. The millionaire tax is a 99% personal income tax on anyone or household earning more than $1 million each year. The law takes effect in 2028. So then why'd you sign it as an emergency? If it doesn't take effect for many years, why'd you put it into law as an emergency, stopping people from doing a referendum? Oh, because it's easier to repeal your tax that way? Even before the law was signed by Governor Bob Ferguson, staunch opposers are ready to take it on. Founder of Let's Go Washington and friend of the show, Brian Haywood, said, it's a destructive thing for the state. Everything's not going to collapse tomorrow. It will be this slow, steady pain. Exactly. Haywood launched the campaign to repeal the millionaire's tax soon after it was signed by the governor. The group turned in more than 511,000 signatures on July 2nd to qualify for the November ballot. The Secretary of State's office has yet to officially certify the signatures, but with such a high number turned in, Haywood is confident of the outcome. Hey, let me ask you a question. If you could take ballots after Election Day, can you also take initiative signatures after Election Day? Hey, I say, if you could do that for the ballots, why can't you do that for the signatures? Right? Now, what's happening is the Democrats attached a whole bunch of things to this tax, K through 12 funding, free school lunches, you name it. So that way they can say, oh, the children, they're taking away the money from the children. Oh, what are we going to do without it? It's a spending problem. You guys were able to fund these things beforehand, but you specifically attach these so that you can claim that it's going to affect the funding of all these other programs. No, you have a spending problem. You guys spend $5 million so far on trans surgeries for convicted felons. There's this woman. This is pretty funny, by the way. This is a social media fun. For those of you who follow me on social media, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hoffather over on X. There is this woman who got very, very mad, very, very mad that I went to the Washington booth at the Great American State Fair in D.C. and gave out flags and constitutions. This is a real person, by the way, not a bot. I actually know who this person is. Look this person up. They are a real person. And they got mad that I went against the governor's wishes. Tell me you don't know American history without telling me you don't know American history. And she was saying, how dare I, me, Ari Hoffman, represent Washington State? And when I said that Washington State didn't want to spend the money on the booth, but they're more than happy to spend $5 million on trans surgeries for convicted felons, she wrote, I want to see proof that we actually spent that money. So what did I do? I pulled up the public disclosure request that I got from Washington State Department of Corrections and posted it as a reply. Didn't even change anything about it. Just posted what I got from them directly, showing we spent $4.8 million so far on trans surgeries for convicted felons. If you will spend money on that, you will literally spend money on anything. So, my friends, Washington State has a spending problem. They don't have a revenue problem. Now, they're about to have a revenue problem because they're discouraging all this business. They have a war on millionaires. They have a war on wealth. They have a massive exodus. Howard Schultz left. Jeff Bezos left. We don't know the names of a lot of other people who have left. Starbucks has left. Other companies have left. We've documented a whole bunch of them. They're about to have a massive revenue problem. And they're going to say, well, you know what? We know the threshold for the millionaire's tax was $1 million a year, but we're going to make it $750,000. No, we're going to make it $500,000. No, we're going to make it $400,000. No, we're going to make it $100,000. No, we'll make it everybody in the state. Need I remind you that Turd Ferguson and crew spent millions of dollars on this money to hire more people for our very own IRS here in Washington State for the Washington Department of Revenue. And that's because they're chasing away all these businesses. They're losing all this money. Well, I did another public disclosure request, and I got all these documents showing that Turd Ferguson tried and failed to convince Starbucks that higher taxes were a good thing. I got meeting prep notes because what happens is Turd Ferguson and most elected officials have staff who prep them for meetings and do all the research and give them a little cheat sheet. So I got Turd Ferguson's 5-page cheat sheet for his meeting with Starbucks. When was this meeting scheduled? After Starbucks announced that they were moving to Nashville. After Starbucks announced that they were closing close to 40 stores here in Washington. After Starbucks announced that they were laying off a whole bunch of people here, but hiring a whole bunch of people in Nashville. After, a year after, Starbucks had sent Turd Ferguson a letter saying, if you do all these taxes last time, during his largest tax increase in Washington State history, this was a year before the income tax. If you do this, it will hurt our business. We won't be as competitive. After they sent that letter, Bob Ferguson went, oh crap, they're leaving. What do we do? Quick, somebody set a meeting real fast. Somebody set a meeting as fast as you possibly can. So what did the notes say? The goal of the meeting was to make the case for, quote unquote, why Washington, why you should stay, even though they had already made the announcement that they are investing $100 million in a 250,000 square foot space in Nashville to gather information to inform your future strategy, navigating the firm's continued corporate and retail presence, which is, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So apparently on February 5th, before they signed the income tax into law, during the Challenge Seattle dinner, Mr. Nicole, chairman and chief executive of Starbucks, brought up public safety concerns near the Starbucks headquarters as a top concern. Starbucks HQ, as many of you know, for the time being, is in Sodo, an area plagued by homeless, drug addict crime. It's across the street from a Home Depot, which literally has one of those SPD guard towers in the parking lot. So you got illegal aliens and you got homeless problems. Ferguson's office considered bringing in the Washington State Patrol to help, even though it was a King County and Seattle issue. According to the meeting prep, Mr. Nicole raised issues about the overall business environment in Washington, including the impacts of the 2025 revenue package and the millionaire's tax. In particular, he may raise concerns about the sales tax on additional services like advertising, the B&O tax surcharge on income over $250 million impacting the company. For the millionaire's tax, his concerns are more likely to be directed at retaining executive talent in the state. You know what I find funny about that? Do you guys remember when I got a hold of those documents for another meeting prep that Turd Ferguson did with the NBA? And I said in those documents, the NBA was concerned about the income tax affecting recruitment of players. Do you remember how the Seattle sports blogosphere got mad at me? How dare you, Ari? Other teams are in states with income tax, and that's not an issue. Remember what happened with John Schneider? John Schneider went on one of our local sports shows and said agents were calling him and telling him that he lost that advantage in negotiating, that we were losing our income, that we were getting an income tax. Literally said that. And it was in those meeting notes. And yet I was demonized by the sports community that I didn't know what I was talking about, even though these were documents from Ferguson's office. So you may keep the Seahawks in town, but I love that all these local stations are freaking out about the new ownership of the Seahawks. Are they going to stay? Are they going to move? Well, a business owner is going to look at the business climate and go, should we stay or should we go? Should we stay or should we go now? That's the new discussion that every single business has here in Washington. Remember the surveys we've shown you where over half the businesses in Washington considered leaving Washington if they should stay, if they should go, because things are getting that bad? Yeah, all this is a real concern now. Ferguson was given these talking points, worst talking points in the world. Similar to your work bringing Starbucks, quote unquote, back to basics. That's their new theme for Starbucks. My focus is getting Washington back to delivering excellent core public services like schools, roads, and bridges, promoting good governance. Okay, Bob, don't use words you don't understand like good governance. Don't use phrases you don't understand like good governance, because you're not good at governing. Otherwise, you want to chase away all these businesses. And emphasizing what continues to make Washington a unique magnet for attracting elite talent and innovation, an excellent quality of life, and a welcoming and beautiful place, where you might get broken into by a bunch of crazies next to your HQ because Seattle, King County, and Washington won't actually enforce the law. It was too late. By the time this meeting was set in April, ironically, on April 15th, on tax day, Starbucks had already laid off 1,300 Washingtonian workers, closed 31 Washington locations, including the Seattle Reserve Roastery on Capitol Hill. The notes referenced 5 additional store closures, additional 69 employees being laid off, the headquarters employment dropping over 25% since 2023. The company had already announced a 250,000 square foot expansion in Nashville in the month before, and hiring of 2,000 workers in Tennessee. Even Ferguson's office didn't believe Starbucks' claim that Seattle would remain the global support headquarters, acknowledging public questions about whether the company is gradually shifting its center of gravity. So even Ferguson's office didn't believe that Starbucks wasn't leaving Washington. And he was desperate to convince them to stay. With, you should be happy paying these taxes. Look at the amazing things we're doing, like spending $5 million on trans surgeries for convicted felons. We're still going to have a lot of crime in Soto, but those convicted felons, they're going to have really nice boob jobs. I hope you're happy about that. That's why Washington. Let's vote for Washington. Let's stay in Washington. This was a last-ditch attempt to get them to stay. And this meeting was actually referenced. Remember when Turd Ferguson said he met with Starbucks to Chris Daniels from Como News when he was being grilled over them leaving? This was the meeting. This was the meeting he was talking about. And he blew it. And Starbucks is leaving. And for those of you saying good riddance, they got rid of the Sonics. Schultz got rid of the Sonics, and there are a bunch of woke guys and whatever. Great, but what happens is when there's not enough revenue because companies like Starbucks left, who do you think they're going to tax instead? Who do you think they're going to tax instead? And something else is Starbucks appeared to notice the error of its ways the past 5 years, talking about higher crime in locations, talking about how it was affecting stores, affecting staff. So it looked like they might be changing a little bit. And guess what? Now they moved. Do I wish they hadn't contributed tons of money to the politicians that did this? Absolutely. But now Washington is going to be worse off without them because Turd Ferguson is going to need more money. And who's he going to come to for it? You. You were mad about the Sonics leaving? You should be mad about Starbucks leaving because now they're going to need to get that money out of you and the income tax. And that's why you need to fight to repeal this thing because it's coming for you eventually. When we come back, my friends, speaking of things coming for you eventually, DEI, it ain't gone. I know a lot of politicians are trying to claim it is, but no, it's not dead. And it's in our medical schools. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, while you're there, rate and share so your friends know how awesome the show is. Well, today up on Capitol Hill was a warning sign of what's going to happen if the Democrats win the midterms. So, Sam Haygood, who is the chancellor of the University of California, San Francisco, was testifying on Capitol Hill. If you think DEI is gone, it is not, my friends. It is going to come back with a vengeance. This is the chancellor of a medical school. And this is how he's answering these questions.
Dr. Haygood, UCSF's classroom guide titled Framework for Gender and Sex Concepts in Teaching advises against using the term pregnant women. Instead, it says to use pregnant people. Who are pregnant people compared to pregnant women? Just curious.
So that is a part of a curriculum to help our students who are facing a wide diversity of patients. Of course, the vast majority of pregnancies are in women, and I have absolutely no problem with using the word pregnant women. I use it myself.
Has a non-biological woman ever had a baby?
A transgender person can.
That's not a biological woman. Has a non-biological woman ever had a baby?
I would
No,
reiterate,
it's ridiculous.
We take care of transgender patients.
Doctor.
Okay, so this is a word game at this point. All right, so you are affirming mental health issues. That's what it is. A man cannot have a baby. I don't care what Arnold Schwarzenegger does in movies. Just cannot happen. I'm really scared because my son wants to go to medical school. I'm worried about where he's going to get in. Or are they going to teach this craziness? Oh, he wasn't done yet, my friends. There was more to this craziness.
We have transgender programs for both pediatrics and adults. We do not do surgery under the age of 18.
Okay.
And we abide by federal and state law, as well as the recommendations of 35 professional associations in North America.
Well, then you are ignoring the HHS, you are ignoring the UK, you are ignoring Finland, ignoring Sweden, ignoring...
It's not a program that I am an expert in.
Okay.
But those clinicians that focus on this area are continuously evaluating international literature in this field.
But you are involving medical students.
I'm sorry, my eyesight is, even with glasses, is not very good.
But your transgender clinic does continue to give puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones to children.
Correct.
Oh, so they don't do the surgeries, but they're still giving them medication that can clinically neuter them. That's what you're doing, right? But that's different. That's totally different. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Oh, we're not done yet. Democratic Representative Jahana Hayes was yelling at these deans. Now, mind you, they're repeating all her crazy talking points, but apparently they're not woke enough for her.
I am incredibly disappointed that as academic deans, you could not immediately answer the question about teaching colonialism in healthcare. Teaching colonialism directly addresses the systemic roots of healthcare inequities. It exposes how historic power structures dictate who receives quality care. It's important for future doctors to have that education to recognize how that historic legacy promotes biases and negatively impairs outcomes. That's why you teach colonialism in healthcare. I am equally as disappointed to hear that we have deans from California universities specifically who can't immediately say that the Black Panther Party was central to healthcare discussions.
Okay, crazy lady. Can we stop there? The Black Panther Party was a violent group of domestic terrorists. Let's call it what it is. When they didn't get their way, they rioted. Also, this colonialist nonsense. I got a question. Should we be teaching history class? Aside from history of anatomy, aside from scientific evolution, that stuff you may want to teach in medical school. But overall, I want to know that they know what the femur is, that they know what arteries are, that they know what a man versus a woman is, rather than this historical nonsense that you are creating out of absolute nothingness. This nonsense is coming back full bore if the Democrats win back Congress in the midterms. Just watch. Mark my words, that is what is going to happen. Oh, and by the way, as much as they claim to be so woke and so understanding, Democrats are among the most racist people. In fact, when we come back, we're going to tell you about the attacks on different minority groups, how they are ramping up in blue cities and blue states, even though they claim to be so tolerant. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, new numbers are out, and they are terrible. A recent survey found that 57% of Jews experienced anti-Semitism over the past year here in America, 38% now concealing their Jewish identity in public, nearly 1 in 4 avoiding Jewish events out of fear. FBI data shows Jews are 525% more likely to be the target of a hate crime than their share of the U.S. population would suggest. And we know that's really bad in places like New York. I remember I had a teacher who used to tell us a story about hiding his yarmulke, hiding his books when he went to school in Manhattan. And he was telling us what that was like in the 1940s. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, contributor over at PragerU, rock star of the Jewish world, Shabbos Kestenbaum. Thanks so much for being with us today, buddy.
Pleasure being with you, Ari. Thanks for having me.
You get to put that in your Twitter bio now, rock star of the Jewish world.
I've never been called that before. That's cool.
Yes, patent pending, trademarked. So, Shabbos, tell us what this is like, because it's not like, oh, hate crimes against Jews are this much, and right behind them is Asians, and right behind them is blacks, and right behind them is Hispanics. There's a massive, massive gap between the two.
Yeah, very, very well articulated, very well said. I can also speak anecdotally as someone who speaks on college campuses quite often, who speaks at, Jewish institutions, synagogues, summer camps. There's a real fear. I wish that wasn't true, but it is true. The amount of people, and as you just said, the data backs it up, who've taken off their yarmulkes, have taken off their Star of David necklaces, who will actually not tell their friends about their Jewish identity. It's a real fear. And I wish I could just say it's a fear that's not substantiated by the reality, but unfortunately it is also substantiated by the reality. We have seen that physical acts of violence, hate crimes, have had record surges since October 7th. And keep in mind, even before October 7th, we have seen that they were reaching record highs. People forget in 2021, there was a march against the hate in New York City, which, of course, there are more Jews living in New York City than any other city on earth, more than Jerusalem, more than Tel Aviv. And Jews there are reporting feeling that they're not comfortable and not safe in their communities anymore. I think it also hurts the fact, you mentioned New York, and I think it's a really good example, that you have a mayor who refuses to condemn the calls for an intifada, who has a lot to say about Bibi Netanyahu, but doesn't have any opinion as to whether Hamas should disarm. This is not a friend. He's not just a foe to the Jewish people, but I would argue he's a foe to what makes America so great. Chief among that is religious freedom. This is someone who fundamentally subscribes to a radical ideology that is just not compatible with our way of life here in the United States. I mean, he only became an American 6 years ago, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I do love the part where he says he's been a Knicks fan, a lifelong Knicks fan. And I said, shut up, dude. Shut up. You were born in Uganda. You didn't get here you didn't become an American citizen until 6 years ago. Don't give me that lifelong Knicks fan BS. Now, Shabbos, I don't know if you saw this, by the way. My wife over at Jewish News Syndicate has been covering it a lot. We've been covering it a little bit. The Washington State Democratic Party just adopted a platform which blames Israel for anti-Semitism. While we used to say this was the fringe of the Democrat Party, now it seems like it's completely taken over the Democrat Party with what happened with Ro Khanna. It seems like if you want to show how democratic you are, you just say, I hate Israel, go on a trip, shoot some fake video, and then boom, you have your bona fides and you can run for president.
Yeah, again, very well said. I mean, Ro Khanna went to Israel to cover the fact that he supported essentially a Nazi rapist. And I know that that's a very aggressive way of phrasing it, but that accurately describes Graham Plattner. He had a Totenkopf, which is an SS Nazi tattoo, for 18 years, only covered it up when he decided to run for the Democratic nominee, which he got. He was elected by the Democratic Party, and essentially he was given a free pass after the first 3 sexual assault allegations. But by the 4th, then it became unconscionable anymore. So Ro Khanna, rather than taking responsibility, decided to have a smoke and mirrors distraction and talk about how he felt like a brown person for the first time when he went to Israel, even though Israel, of course, is a majority Mizrahi, meaning it's individuals coming from the Middle East. As it pertains to the Washington Democratic Party, look, the fundamental difference today between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is the Republican Party rejects, the Democratic Party elects. Meaning, I'm not going to pretend that there isn't a problem with the woke rights, with this fringe Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens movement, but President Trump keeps tweeting that they have no part of the MAGA agenda, that they're not part of the conservative movement. They're not getting elected. If anything, we're stopping to elect them. Thomas Massie is out of a job. Marjorie Taylor Greene, out of a job. The Democratic Party is doing the exact opposite. They're taking their crazies. They're taking people who wipe their hands with the American flag, literally, who say that publicly and proudly, and they say, this is who we want to represent us. And so the Washington State Democratic Party is not dissimilar to the New York State Democratic Party or the New Jersey Democratic Party. It's just a question of when will they be open about their radicalization as well. Washington are the only ones who have the courage to do it publicly. But unfortunately, it's the new normal.
Yeah, it really is. I hate to laugh at that, but I mean, the way that, they did come out and say it. I mean, all of their delegates unanimously voted for this, and they say, well, Jews keep leaving the party, so why should we do what they want? And I said, well, there's a reason they keep leaving the party, guys. In the last few minutes.
And by the way, if I could just add very quickly, because the more I think about it, would those same Democrats in Washington or elsewhere, would they say, it was bad that George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin, but come on, he had it coming. Come on, he was high on fentanyl. Come on, he had held a pregnant woman by gunpoint. No, because you don't blame the victim. Would they, during the height of Black Lives Matter, say, yeah, it's true, Black Lives Matter, but come on, why is 13% of the population responsible for 50% of the crime? They would never even dare to say that. They would be labeled a racist, an extremist. They'd be kicked out of the party. But it seems that Jews or American Jewry are the only acceptable scapegoat or the only acceptable victims where the Democrats feel emboldened to blame the victims for their own victimization. I mean, it's just insanity, and it is an insane double standard.
Insane. Absolutely insane. The last few minutes we have with Shabbos Kastamam, who's a contributor over at Prager University. So not a lot of people know this because you do such amazing appearances, you do such great debates, and you're a great spokesman, not just for the Jewish people, but for Americana, everything America that you possibly can. You're a great spokesperson for that. But you actually are an expert, and this is what you went to school for, in Jewish history, in the Holocaust and such. And looking at this kind of stuff, this seems to me very reminiscent of other parts of our history, where a radical group will take over a country through this method. It happened in Germany, it happened in Iran, happened in many other places. Are you concerned about the future of America, looking what's happening at the Democrat Party right now?
Yeah, that's a really important point. People don't realize that there was never a time in German history where the Nazi Party ever got the majority of the vote. It just never occurred. What we are seeing, which is eerily reminiscent, is the acceptance, the normalization, and the celebration of anti-Semitism, particularly on our college campuses. The first book burning that took place during the Third Reich was at the University of Berlin. In fact, who were the people throwing the books in the fire? It was the campus students. And in fact, where did they get the books from? They got it from the university library. So it was young people who were very much taken by this acceptance of radicalism, the acceptance of anti-Semitism. And obviously in the United States, we're so blessed with the greatest country on earth, and that means we don't have legalized metrics of discrimination, right? You can't point to systemic anti-Semitism. You just can't. There aren't laws that treat Jews differently, at least not yet. What you can do is you can point to the acceptance and the normalization amongst the young people and say that Gen Z, particularly Gen Z men, are being fed a diet of political indoctrination by nefarious actors, both on the far right and on the far left, who are being told that the reason you have economic anxieties, the reason you have failures with women, it's because of these shadowy, undefined forces, these cabal of elites who, wink, wink, are the Jews. That is a very, very dangerous message to be telling young people, not merely because it's not true, but you will get them angry and they will actually believe you, which is why young people are the most likely to be medicated, the most likely to be depressed or anxious, and the most likely to engage in acts of political violence on both sides of the aisle. And that is absolutely something that we are seeing as reminiscent of our past as the Jewish people.
And I'll tell you something else. If there was a cabal, 1, I want my check. 2, I want my keys to the space laser. And 3, I want to be able to control the weather. And I don't get to do any of those things. Shabbos Kastamam, contributor over at PragerU. Do appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Ari. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And this one comes to us from Fox News. For the first time in their lives, many beagles rescued from Anthony Fauci. No, I'm just kidding. They were rescued from Wisconsin's controversial Ridgeland Farms are learning how to be dogs. Maybe Fauci had something to do with it. After spending years in a breeding facility that supplied animals for laboratory research, hundreds of the dogs are now settling into their forever homes where they're encountering grass, stairs, toys, and affection for the first time. Right now, they don't even know they're dogs, says Paws of War co-founder Robert Misery? That can't be his last name. Misery? Said during a segment on My View with Lara Trump. They're coming from very, very difficult environments, but as we transition them to families, as we've seen with adopters, they are coming around. His organization helps train and place shelter dogs to assist U.S. military veterans suffering from PTSD and the emotional effects of war. He told Fox News that the group took 10 beagles into their care upon their release. The dogs were among a group that was transferred from the facility after state investigators uncovered alleged violations of animal welfare laws, prompting a rescue effort that the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., called a major win for animal welfare. Quote, it was just a rewarding opportunity for this organization to be part of that rescue. Adapting to life outside the controversial facility takes time. Stepping onto grass, climbing the stairs, learning how to be around humans poses a challenge sometimes. And when you see them and they're shut down, that's how they lived. They lived like that. They weren't dogs, they were products. We see them from shaking and not knowing if we're going to hurt them. They don't know if they're going back where they came from. Who knows what's going on in their minds? But one thing we do know is now they're safe. The team has this guy, director of adoptions, Jody Cohen, described how the group helps the traumatized little souls, from interviewing veterans and first responders to find good matches for the dogs, to teaching the dogs how to perform basic skills. They've never even been walked on leashes before, so you have to carry them around. We have to teach them how to go potty. We have to teach them to keep their runs clean and basically get them ready for adoption. When the dogs are adopted, they can participate in our free group obedience training. Our adopters go home with hundreds of dollars worth of supplies. They make lifelong friends. So it's not only about adopting the dog, but it's about making relationships, and that's why our program is so different. The organization says the program is designed to help both the animals and the people adopting them recover from trauma and build confidence together. Quote, the lives are being changed on both ends of the leash. They really are. It's making tremendous, tremendous strides. And that's why we wake up every single morning knowing we can do it again. That's really a beautiful thing. This is the kind of stuff that makes me want to adopt a dog. And then I remember how much adopting animals cost and that I have children and they're expensive too. In other news, this one comes to us from the Good News Network. A decade ago, a young American began recording interviews with World War II combat veterans to satisfy his curiosity about the war. That curiosity became something of an obsession, and he has interviewed 3,000 veterans. So he has this show called On the Road. 28-year-old Rishi Sharma says it's been a privilege to meet the moral compass behind our society. Quote, I've spent every single day of the last 10 years doing that, having recently finished speaking with a 100-year-old survivor of Iwo Jima. He first started the interviews in 2016 when he was post-high school and then continued going around the country to meet these people. He said there were among 700,000 World War II vets among us then. Today, that number stands at just 30,000. He says just the advice they impart silently steers the ship of the country. Too many people forget about this. Too many people don't learn their lessons. And if you haven't had the opportunity to speak to one of them, I recommend that you find one as soon as possible, because what they used to tell us when we were kids is you are probably the last generation that is going to know these guys. Luckily, our kids get to, but there's not many generations after that to learn about the greatest generation, to remember the greatest generation. That's going to about wrap it up for us today, my friends, but fear not. We will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.